Is Xbox Game Pass destroying the industry? Xbox recently shut down multiple studios responsible for some highly rated and successful games at that, namely Tango Gameworks, who most recently developed indie darling and predominantly mentioned for discourse game Hi-Fi Rush. Some of the studio closures made more sense, like Arcane Austin getting shafted after their abysmal launch of Redfall, not to be confused with the other Arcane location in France who did Dishonored and Deathloop and are still in business. And another closed studio was Alpha Dog Games, who just made a few mobile games. I'll be super blunt up front. As a consumer, I don't know why I'm expected to weep for the closures of studios who put out games that aren't very good or severely underperform. Like Tango going down after Hi-Fi Rush should certainly put other studios on notice that they can be shuttered at any time, no matter their recent performance. I get that that leaves some developers' futures up in the air, and it's scary to think that you can make a good game and still be shut down to compensate for failures made elsewhere. But as far as these other ones are concerned, I'm supposed to care that a studio that only makes iOS games is gone. I'm supposed to take off my hat and put it up to my chest because Arcane's lesser half got axed after making one of the most unfinished and worst received games in years. Developers can go on Twitter and express sympathy for their fellow man, that's totally fine. But as someone whose experience with games begins and ends with playing them, I can't say I'm affected by the loss of teams responsible for bad or irrelevant products. Even Tango only had one actual mild hit on their hands in Hi-Fi Rush, which still only sold a couple million units, when their previous works include the squandered potential of Ghostwire Tokyo and the middling horror experiences of the Evil Within games. Not exactly a pedigreed studio. Meanwhile, based on how people were reacting, you'd think they'd shut down all of Bethesda. But Xbox's revenue has been declining, which is obviously the main reason for these closures, and some suspect Game Pass is to blame, a service Xbox has always been adamant about being profitable, but there's literally no fucking way that it is. I pay $10 a month to save anywhere from $30 to $100 a month on games I no longer have to buy elsewhere to try. Now, if I really like those games and have an intention of playing them for more than a couple hours, I will buy them elsewhere to keep them, because good games do deserve to be bought. But there's a lot of games that seem good or interesting, but then they only hold your attention for a bit, at which point you'll be glad you weren't charged. I did my whole Game Pass shill a year ago in this very series, and I'm echoing the most important sentiment I first put in there. Game Pass is unsustainable, so ride it into the ground while you can. It doesn't matter if Game Pass is to blame for layoffs in other places. Xbox made their bed in 2017 when it first launched with a model so consumer-friendly it's anti-business. This has been inevitable for almost a decade. This system was made for us, and my wallet demands I take advantage of it come hell or high water. My first responsibility as a consumer is to my finances, and I won't have people on Twitter telling me I better not support a system where I get to play a bunch of free games I otherwise wouldn't have bothered trying. But nothing's free on Game Pass because you're paying for the subscription. Dude, you know exactly what the fuck I mean. Save your 55 IQ for putting shapes into holes. You'll need every point of it. These studio closures are putting a rain cloud over the Game Pass and PC release of Hellblade 2, which is happening May 21st. A week ago, people were saying it was basically unadvertised, with nothing but a seemingly disinterested tweet from Xbox that just said, Senua Saga, Hellblade 2, May 21, with a low-quality JPEG of the main character. But now I'm looking through Xbox's Twitter history, and they definitely made a lot more posts about it, and I've seen YouTube ads about it too. Still, people are concerned that even if it turns out to be good, Ninja Theory, the studio behind it, has an uncertain future ahead of them. Which would make sense, since other than the first Hellblade, Ninja Theory hasn't released a game worth giving a shit about since 2013 when they gave everyone a Devil May Cry reboot to hate. Hellblade 2 is a $50 walking simulator that mostly exists to showcase admittedly terrific graphics and advancements in mocap technology, but will be very niche as a game that's apparently also only 8 to 12 hours long, and I would totally understand if Xbox thought a probably incredibly expensive to make game that was also incredibly niche was just not worth the price of funding an otherwise D-tier studio anymore. Ninja Theory made Bleeding Edge in 2020, a bland Overwatch clone that reviewed poorly, Episode 1 of a Star Wars VR game in 2019, Nicodemus Demon of Evanishment, whatever the fuck that means, a game I obviously never heard of, in 2018, the first Hellblade in 2017, another game I've never heard of called Dexed in 2013, Disney Infinity 3.0 in 2015, two Devil May Cry remasters/reboots of the same first game, a game called Fight Back, which I also never heard of, Enslaved Odyssey to the West, which sounds vaguely familiar but never played, and their first ever project was Heavenly Sword back in 2007, a game that's like OG God of War if it was worse. I wouldn't fund this studio if I was gaining revenue. Alright, that's a joke, but still, I don't think Xbox needs Ninja Theory to stick around to appease the 200 people who are going to buy Hellblade 2 on Steam. Come to think of it, which studios are indispensable to Xbox? They've got around 20 of them now. 343 is their Halo team. I haven't heard a damn thing about Halo Infinite since its panned launch, though I think people said it's gotten better, but it is hard to imagine Halo ever stopping being a thing, even if it stumbles. World's Edge is similarly singularly focused on Age of Empires, a franchise I have no idea how popular it is, so who knows. The Coalition is responsible for Gears of War, but supposedly that franchise has been plucking daisies for years, so it could go at any time, maybe. Compulsion Games is responsible for We Happy Few, South of Midnight, and Contrast, three titles with no acclaim to speak of, so they could be out. Double Fine hasn't done anything since Psychonauts 2 in 2021, and I wouldn't call any of their other games particularly heavy hitters. The last one I played was Brutal Legend in '09. I feel like a lot of their games are weird and interesting, but not fun. The Initiative is a studio founded in 2018 that has yet to make a single game, but is currently working on a reboot or remake or reimagining or re-something of Perfect Dark. Game better be damn good to justify 6 years of fund allocation for Xbox. Inxile, which is spelled INXILE, so probably pronounced in exile, like a gamer tag from the Call of Duty World at War days, is a studio acquired by Xbox in 2018, known for the Wasteland series, and working on Clockwork Revolution, a steampunk RPG which looks like a combo of Bioshock and Dishonored, and it does look good, so I hope it turns out well. Mojang is an Xbox studio, and we know Minecraft isn't going anywhere, even though I haven't liked anything they've ever tried to do that isn't just Minecraft. Legends, Dungeons, Story Mode, nah. Obsidian would be a terrible studio to lose. They don't always make bangers, but the hitters hit. South Park: The Stick of Truth, The Outer Worlds, Grounded is one of the best survival games, Fallout New Vegas, and their upcoming Avowed game looks good too. Playground Games are heavy hitters with the Forza Horizon series and the upcoming Fable remake, so they're probably safe. Rare is Rare. They've got a giant backlog of iconic stuff. Something Battletoad related gets released every 6 weeks, and their latest, Sea of Thieves, is still swimming along, having just crossed the sea to PS5. They also have Forza, the studio, or the publisher, which is, I guess, separate from the Playground Games developing it, and includes Motorsport instead of just Horizon. Mildly confusing, but Forza is Forza, so as long as there's Forza, there will probably be Forza. The last non-Bethesda Softworks umbrellaed studio is Undead Labs, which is just State of Decay. I guess they're working on a third one, but I could see them getting the axe. Working on a zombie game in the year 2024 is like trying to bring back Bedazzling. Machine Games is next, responsible for the excellent Wolfenstein series, at least the one I played was pretty good, as well as some modern Quake stuff, and now currently working on a first-person Indiana Jones game that I have a hard time getting behind. If Uncharted was in first person and Drake had a whip, that gameplay would be fucking strange, and I wouldn't be that surprised if Machine Games released this. It flopped, and then they got shuttered. ZeniMax is keeping up the Elder Scrolls Online and nothing else, though apparently working on a new unannounced IP, but ZeniMax also owns Bethesda Softworks, the publishing arm of Bethesda, if I'm not mistaken, so they're probably not going anywhere. We already lost Arcane Austin, but what about Arcane Leon, the devs behind Dishonored, Deathloop, and the upcoming Blade? If Blade isn't good, they're for sure gone, in my mind. But if it's good, I think they're safe. The games they make are solid across the board. Then we have id Software of Doom and Quake fame. I don't know if they're currently working on anything. The last stuff I heard about was Doom Eternal campaign expansions 3 years ago, but id must continue to cook because them and Machine Games are or were the only ones doing justice to first-person shooter campaigns these days. Lastly, of course, we have to talk about Bethesda Game Studios, which is the game-making arm of Bethesda, a storied history of genre-defining first-person RPG experiences, Elder Scrolls, Fallout, and the recently mixed Starfield. To me, there's no question that Bethesda is Xbox's biggest name. Halo and Gears aren't what they used to be, Minecraft has been carried since 2011, and Rare's glory days were my elementary school days. Even though Starfield was mixed reception, the Elder Scrolls 6 on concept alone is enough to keep a whole console generation alive. I virtually guarantee you Gamepass won't be around by the time that comes out, and if it is, it won't be released on it. But alternatively, that could be exactly the type of game that's so big that everyone just skips Gamepass like, no, I know I want to own this shit. And then it being on there won't even hurt anyone's bottom line. I think of Game Pass as a collection of demos that don't end. If I already know I want the game, I don't need no demo, but demos are essential for games you're less sure about. This all sounds very doom and gloom for Xbox, but that doesn't mean PlayStation is skating by with no controversies. You all remember the Helldivers 2 debacle that's now translating to the upcoming Ghost of Tsushima PC port. I don't know why Sony all of a sudden is requiring PSN for PC ports of their games. Haven't we been doing fine without that for like a decade? Horizon didn't need it, Final Fantasy didn't need it, Uncharted didn't need it, The Last of Us, Spider-Man, God of War, none of them needed it. Maybe it's the multiplayer aspect, since Helldivers 2 and Ghost of Tsushima have multiplayer, and they specifically said you don't need an account for Ghost of Tsushima if you're just doing single player, but I don't really see why that's different. If you cross-play with PSN players in any other game, you don't need to make a PSN account or follow their special rules. Why does PlayStation multiplayer even have special rules? What are they? They shut down service of Helldivers 2 in 170 some odd countries and are doing the same preemptively with Ghost of Tsushima multiplayer. PlayStation's like, we want our games on PC, but not really. It always did kind of feel forced. Even when they first started announcing PC ports, it was during a time when they were getting bashed for being the only ones never allowing crossplay. They had a lot of heat on them and begrudgingly opened the doors to some of their games they were otherwise just sitting on. Sony never wanted PC ports. They never wanted crossplay, and now they're trying to get PC people to assimilate into their network. The N in PSN stands for nationalism. I think Xbox leading by collaborative example is what forced PlayStation to either get with it or get abandoned. They seem very isolationist. Not that Nintendo is far off, what with their cracking down on emulators who are only even in business because Nintendo fucking sucks at making their games available and convenient to play. They also treat their IP like it's sacred, and anybody doing fan art or running grassroots tournaments of their games while using their characters and promo materials better watch the fuck out for the Nintendo copyright ninjas. Nintendo would take you to court for drawing Luigi on a thank you card. Nintendo sees people improving their games by letting you run them on better hardware with more options, and they're like, stop. You can only play that on our shitty hardware, and that's only if we bothered porting it. Don't have a Nintendo 64 from 30 years ago? You don't deserve to play our games then, bitch. Nintendo is a stuck-up traditionalist, PlayStation is a paranoid recluse, and Xbox is a free-love hippie. Unfortunately, with the looming announcement of the Switch 2, things are looking up for Nintendo, but nobody else. And that's going to do it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you can like, share, and subscribe. Watch all my other videos with no sunscreen on, and I'll see you guys next time.